Okay, we're descending. Everyone in your upright seated position. We're coming in for a landing. Yes, this is much better than before. Here we come. Here we come. Retro on. Yes. Excellent. Oh, hello. I'm Dr. Rocket. Join me for the next edition of Meet the Author with my good friend Moira Rose Donohue. Oh, I see. Second billing, eh? Yeah, what are you gonna do?
The following program is a production of the Fairfax Network, Fairfax County Public Schools, funded in part by the Virginia Satellite Educational Network.
Hello, and welcome to the MTA Studios, home of Meet the Author. Our special guest is Moira Rose Donohue. Moira Rose is a wordsmith for kids. On one hand, she likes to write funny stories for youngsters. And on the other hand, Moira Rose reveals how words work. In her latest book for kids, Penny and the Punctuation Bee, and Alfie the Apostrophe, characters and situations entertain and explain. Moira Rose Donohue, we are so glad to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a delight to be here.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Let me start off with asking, why did you choose to create a punctuation bee as a setting for your most recent book?
Well, you know, I have a natural love for words and punctuation and grammar, and I don't think everyone does. So I thought it might be fun to sort of give punctuation marks a little more personality and perhaps excite kids about punctuation. And I thought if we could make it a lot of fun and have some alternative ways to learning it, maybe kids would get excited about it too.
Well, you've certainly helped me get excited about punctuation. We've got an email. This is from a student at Johnsonburg Elementary. Her name is Abby, and she writes, "Dear Miss Donohue, how many stories have you written? Are they all about punctuation marks?"
Oh, Abby, thanks for asking. I have written a number of stories. I've written 2 picture books, particularly about punctuation marks, but I've also written about other things. I've written a poem. I've written a couple of plays for kids to perform, and right now I'm actually working on a longer chapter book.
Thanks, Abby. Maura, let's talk a little bit about book structure. Format, what format does a picture book have to use? How do you construct it to help you formulate a picture book? Because that's very different from a chapter book.
It is. Tough question, actually, Della. But a picture book is got to be in a 32-page format because of the way it's printed. It's printed on these huge, long sheets that are rolled off a printing press. They have to be able to be folded into 8 pages. So you've got to have a number that's divisible by 8. 32 is the format. And then if you've got to cram into those 32 pages character, setting, and a whole story. Usually you have about 1,000 words, which is not a lot. The most important thing in structuring it, since you've got such a short time, is to set up the problem right in the first 2 pages, the main character and the problem, and then the ending, which is the solution by that character. It's sort of the promise that you make when you set the problem up that you're going to solve it at the end.
Wow, you've given me some good tips for writing a story as well. Have you ever wondered how a writer spends their time? On a recent visit to Moira Rose Donohue's writing studio, our crew returned with a unique perspective of a writer's life, thanks to a 4-legged pug. Let's take a look, and when we come back, more book talk, a spelling bee, and a surprise visit from Dr. Rocket.
Welcome to my street, my grass, my bushes, my house. That's me, Sniffles, the cute one. With a bashed-in face. This is Quincy. He's my buddy puppy, and he's okay for a dog. But I think my best friend is Moira Rose. She's a writer and works in a small room on the 2nd floor. People are curious about a dog's life. You know, the old question, what do dogs do all day? But a dog's eye view of an author's life, let me tell you. First, nothing happens. I mean nothing. And then, magic. Writer's magic. Ideas flow, words come, and Moira Rose starts to write, and then nothing. That's when I start hearing things. Yeah, show the pug statue. Good. Hearing things like knocks from a little door near Moira's desk. And then tap, 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 type, 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 tap, 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 show the pug statue again. And Moira Rose, she was a lawyer before she became a writer. Hey, Moira Rose, tell the folks how you helped solve that punctuation mark case.
This is a book of statutes written in 1916, and this is a statute that became pretty famous after there was some issue about it being repealed. This statute right here is missing a quotation mark right there, and as a result, this was repealed because the quotation mark was there instead. Now, if you don't know what repealed is, you can look that word up in this dictionary, or I can tell you. Repealed means that the law was taken away. It was crossed out. It was not a law anymore.
Can you believe that? Punctuation marks rule.
Indeed, punctuation does rule. And is it my understanding that that case you were talking about in that clip actually went to the Supreme Court?
It did, Della, indeed, a number of years ago, and the Supreme Court had to rule that the punctuation mark should have been there and that they were going to repunctuate the statute. Quite a big deal.
That's quite fascinating, too. Well, my name is Della Kidd, and I'm talking with children's author Moira Rose Donohue. We'll open the phone lines in a few minutes, so here's the number if you would like to give us a call about the writing process. The phone number is 1-800-231-6359. Locally, it's 703-978-1636. Moira, is it fair to say that your favorite pug, Sniffles the dog, senses a bit of writer's block from time to time?
Well, I think that's probably true for all writers, actually. All writers have their own tools, but I do have something that tends to help me a little bit. I brought it to show you. This is a Native American storyteller doll, and it's a little statue with a woman and a lot of little children all around it, and the Native Americans are very fond of their storytellers. It's the way to pass along culture and heritage and songs and so forth. I use it sometimes just to kind of center me and to remember that I'm telling stories to children.
A little bit of inspiration.
Yeah.
And we were also talking before the show that you mentioned you also sometimes use sentence starters. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when I get stuck, a lot of writers do different things, but when I get stuck, I like to write to a prompt, a sentence of some sort. I love first lines of movies and stories, and so I like to go to a first line that gets me started thinking, something like, I heard a noise behind me, or I woke up in the middle of the night and heard footsteps. Anything like that will get me started with a story.
And sometimes it's just something fun that happens during the day, or something interesting can really, if you really think about it, can just be a nice way to start off a good story.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, with the popularity of Penny and the Punctuation Bee, for our students who are watching, can you explain the differences among the sentences?
Okay, all right, you're testing my knowledge now. Well, there are three basic types of sentences. There's the declarative, there's the interrogative, and there's the imperative. The declarative is your simple statement. It ends with a period. It would be something like, the lion roared. The interrogative is the question, and that ends with a question mark, and it would be something like, did the lion roar? And the last, the imperative, ends with an exclamation mark, and that one would be, the lion roared.
The punctuation marks really do help us, emphasis and meaning in our writing.
They really do.
Yeah. Well, board games, jump rope rhymes, spelling bees are just a few ways young writers can become more active learners. Our network sponsor, Dr. Ephraim B. Rockett, takes on a new role as he investigates the challenging world of kids and words at play. Dr. Rockett, can you hear me? What special role have you taken on for us? Dr. Rockett?
All right, okay, we're descending. Everyone in your upright and seated position, we're coming in for a landing. Yes, this is much better than before. Here we come, here we come. Retro's on. Oh, yes, excellent. Oh, Oh, I see we're having a punctuation bee. I want everyone to know that I, Dr. Rocket, am very pleased to host this very important opportunity of intellectual exercise to further elaborate on the significance of graphical symbols to represent time, mood, space, drama, and of course, comprehension between reader and writer, because as you all know, without spaces, marks, and punctuation, the reader would be lost. Let the games begin. Let me get into something a little more appropriate. Today we have 2 groups, and we will go 3 rounds. Please look at the screen. Could it be true? It was true. This cottage was made of candy and cakes. Go. That's right, confer with each other, think. Time's up. Pencils down. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Tell us what you have here.
Could it be true? Question mark. It was true! Explanation mark. This cottage was made of candy and cakes! Explanation mark.
Excellent, excellent. And can you tell us what you have here?
Could it be true? Question mark. It was true! Exclamation mark. This cottage was made of candy and cakes, period.
Brilliant, brilliant. They both had different answers, but they're both correct. Now let's move on to round 2. But he has nothing on at all. Little child at last. Sounds like the emperor needs new clothes. Yes, yes. Quotation marks. Do they go inside? Do they go outside? Are they facing in or out? That's it. Yes, yes. Think about it. Time is up. Tell us exactly what you have here.
Quotation marks, but he has nothing on at all.
Not at all.
Comma, quotation marks, said the little child at last.
Excellent, excellent. And can you tell us what you have here?
Quotation mark, comma, said the little child at last, period.
And now on to our final round. Let's look at the screen. Trip, trap, trip, trap, trip, trap, went the bridge. Commas! I just love commas. You all had it correctly. Brilliant. This has been the most wonderful punctuation bee in the whole world, and I want to thank you and our audience. Back to the studio.
Thank you, Dr. Rocket. Commas, periods, exclamation points, and quotation marks are just a few mechanical elements to help a writer clarify information, advance a story, and win a punctuation bee. Moira, I noticed that a few of the students took the same sentence, used different ending punctuation, but they were all grammatically correct. Why, and what does that mean for the author of stories?
Well, you're exactly right. And it is a little tricky sometimes, but the reason for that is the author is expressing emotion with punctuation marks. And sometimes the emotion is going to be just a statement. Sometimes it's going to be something more exciting, which is why you use an exclamation mark. Punctuation is really important today, particularly when you've got abbreviated forms of text messaging, emailing. But depending on how you punctuate something, it could make a totally different meaning. For example, you could say, be home at 5, and that might be expressed with a period, and it's just a statement. Or it could be home at 5, question mark, are you really coming home at 5? Or you could even have, perhaps, be home at 5, exclamation mark, meaning
That would be a
you better.
command.
Yeah. So it's really a conveyance of emotion.
Certainly. Well, we have an email from a 2nd grader. Her name is Delana. And actually, she has several questions for you. She writes, what inspired you to write the book? Are you Greek? Do you do double Dutch jumping rope? Do you do magic tricks? Moira, you don't have to answer them all, but I do think she's probably referring to your book, Alfie the Apostrophe.
Oh, well, thank you so much for your questions. No, I'm not Greek, but the apostrophe comes from a Greek word, and I always find that very interesting to find out where words come from. And do I do magic? Well, on occasion I have been known to do a couple of little magic tricks, but mostly I'm just fascinated by watching magicians.
Well, speaking of magic, Moira Rose Donohue took her love of language and her magic wand to Greenbrier East Elementary to illustrate how to create contractions. Check this out.
we've got 2 words, I am. And maybe if we get lucky, we can use a contraction and turn them into 1 word. Let's see, hocus pocus, abracadabra, punctuation's magic. We did it! We've made 1 word, and what word is that, guys? I'm. And here are 2 words I'm sure you never hear. Do and not. Maybe with some magic, we can make a contraction. What do we have? Don't. 2 words, they are, and with luck, they can become there.
Moira, before I get on with my next question, we have a caller. Ola, what is your question today for Moira?
My question is, what inspired her to write books about punctuations?
What was your inspiration?
Well, I actually was reading a book about punctuation, and all of a sudden one morning when I was taking a shower, I had this thought that I could take an adult book about punctuation and make it a kid's book about punctuation. So I quickly wrote Alfie the apostrophe.
Thanks for calling, Ola. Moira, is writing magic or is it hard work?
It's a little bit of both. There is magic when you sit there with a new idea and you start writing and you're kind of in another world. The characters are talking, sometimes even doing things that surprise you. And then the hard work comes. You have to revise and revise. Some authors revise more than others, but almost all authors have to go through at least 3 drafts, kind of that first draft where you put it all out there, the second draft where you reorganize it, make it into a story, and the third draft where you punctuate it and clean it up and just choose the exact right word.
And that's the part many of us don't like, is to be, have to keep going back and revisiting it, but it gets better and better every time we do it.
It does.
Yeah. We have another call. This is a caller. Emily, what is your question today for Moira?
What is your favorite story that you wrote?
My favorite story that I've written, well, it's kind of hard to pick. Perhaps it's...
Or it might be one that's not even published yet.
Perhaps it's one that I am working on, Della. Actually, I have a story about grammar and a romance, and I'm hoping to hear some good news about that. I think that's my favorite one to date. Thanks for asking.
Okay. We have another call. This is from Taj from Dogwood Elementary. Hi, Taj. What is your question for Moira?
Hi, this is Taj Malavi-Neely, and my question is, what was your first book that you wrote?
What was your first book that you wrote?
Okay, well, the very first book that I wrote, Taj, I will tell you secretly here, was when I was in, I think 5th or 6th grade. I wrote a book about a ballet dancer, and I sent it to a publisher. It didn't get published. But the very first book that I had published was Alfie the apostrophe.
Okay, thanks for calling, Taj. We have another Emily. Hi, Emily. This is a different Emily. What is your question for Moira?
Why do you like writing about punctuation?
Why do you like writing about punctuation?
Well, for me, punctuation marks are very exciting, and they have personalities that a lot of people don't know about. I mean, you have question marks that are always questioning things that could be school newspaper reporters. You have exclamation marks that are clearly cheerleaders. I like writing about the personalities of punctuation.
Moira, this is not an email coming in, but I've received word that Dr. Rocket is setting up for another punctuation game.
Whoa.
So, let's go ahead, Dr. Rocket.
Welcome to a punctuation game of a different kind. Students will use 1 word and 1 punctuation mark, then get to create their own sentence. Let's welcome our audience. For this first round, you get 1 word and 1 punctuation mark, a period. Please start! The word meet coupled with an exclamation point. Go!
Yes, yes.
I'm going to meet a famous star.
Our next word is lion, and we're going to be using a comma.
are lion, dogs, and cats.
Oh, yes, yes, sir.
What's your prize?
What's your prize? Why, your prize is the gaining of knowledge, the only thing worth really having. Thank you so much, and back to the studio.
Boys and girls, Dr. Rocket is correct. Sometimes the prize is just knowledge. Before I move on with my questions, we have another caller. This is from Darlene. Hi, Darlene. What is your question for Moira?
How do you get your ideas for writing?
Darlene, that's a great question. You know, a lot of writers find different ways to get inspiration to write. Some writers actually like to write to a prompt. Some writers like to walk in nature and get inspiration just from the calmness and the sound of a waterfall. Me, personally, well, I'll tell you, I get inspiration when I'm taking my shower in the morning. I don't know why. Problem with that is it's a little hard to write things down unless you have a very special pencil that writes on your shower wall, which I now have. It at least preserves my ideas until I can get to a typewriter.
Thanks for calling, Darlene. And that's an important point, is that when you get that great idea, write it down, because you might not remember it a little bit later on, even though you think you will.
Yeah.
Okay, we have another caller. This is, I believe, from Othello. What is your question today for Moira? Go ahead.
Hello?
Are they gone? Here we go. What is your question today for Moira? Hi. Tell us your name.
Hello, I'm Ursula.
What is your question for Moira?
How did you start a career in writing?
How did you start a career in writing?
Oh, wow, good question. You know, I was a lawyer for 20 years, and I decided to make a change because I thought it would be really fun to do something a little more creative. I actually had an interest in punctuation because of the case that I worked on when I was a lawyer, but I decided that I would try and take that to a different forum and write stories for children. It was a long time because I wrote a lot of things. In fact, I counted one time, 125, I think, before I actually sold a manuscript. That was a lot of writing and a lot of years doing it, but it was worth persevering because it did happen.
Terrific. We learned a little bit more about you. Thanks for calling. We have another call. This is from Ahmed. What is your question for Moira?
Why did you become a lawyer?
Why did you become a lawyer?
Why did I become a lawyer? Gosh, that was a long time ago. I guess I became a lawyer because I just had a real interest in the political process, in seeing fairness done, and just kind of an intellectual interest in how the country is run through laws, which is why I did a lot of legislative work.
We have another call. This is from Ryan. Hi, Ryan. What is your question?
What is your favorite punctuation?
My favorite
He
punctuation
took my next question.
mark. Thank you, Ryan, so much for asking. When I visit schools, and I do visit schools a lot, I always ask kids what punctuation mark they would like to be. And no one ever asks me. I am so glad you ask. It's very hard because I really do like the period because it stops things. And I really like the exclamation mark because it's exciting. But I have decided that my very favorite is the asterisk. And I don't know if you know what that is, but it's the star. And the reason I like it is because it's sparkly and twinkly, and I like to think of myself that way.
We're seeing an asterisk right there on the screen while you're chatting.
Great. I love it. That's my favorite.
Wonderful.
Thanks for asking.
Now, since I was going to ask you what's your favorite question, now your favorite punctuation, I'll ask you a different question. What do you think about Sniffles, the dog? What do you think his favorite punctuation mark might be?
Wow, Sniffles. Well, I don't know.
Should we ask him?
We could.
Okay. Well, Sniffles, bone up. What's your favorite punctuation mark?
I was thinking, if you could be any punctuation mark, what would you be? I'd be a hyphen. I just like the way that sounds.
I think that I would like to be a quotation mark because I like to talk a lot.
If I was a punctuation mark, I would choose to be a question mark because I like to ask a lot of questions and get information.
I like commas because I like to make lists and this of toys.
I like question marks because I like to know what's happening and I'm very curious.
Quotation marks because I always want to know what's happening and who's saying it. And
an exclamation mark because I'm cheerful and they make reading have expression.
I would like to be a colon because I like to know the explanation and I like to tell time.
I would like to be a period because I want to know how things end.
Hey, Moira Rose, how about a walk?
I think each of those students and Sniffles had a great reason for the punctuation marks they selected. What do you think?
Absolutely.
We have another caller. What is your name and what is your question today for Moira?
My name is Patrick.
Patrick, hi.
And my question is, were you good at punctuations when you were a kid?
Were you good at punctuations when you were a kid? Were you good at using them in your writing?
Well, Patrick, I guess I was pretty good at it. I think I've gotten better, but you know, even now, I have a book that I keep right by my writing area because every now and then I'm not sure and I have to look it up. So,
yeah, Patrick,
yeah,
that was a terrific question. Thank you for calling. We have another call. This is from Turner. Hi, Turner. What are you asking today?
Hi. I want to ask, which is your best book you've written?
Ooh, what do you think is your best book that you've written?
Best book that I've written? Well, I really like Alfie because I really like the magic part of it and I'm fascinated by magic. But Penny, well, Penny's kind of a lot like me, so I guess Penny's my very favorite. She's kind of spunky and she kind of reminds me of myself.
She was very determined, too.
Yeah.
I liked the determination and I liked the way you used the excitement of the cheerleader aspect with the exclamation points and all. How did you think about developing those characters? The twins?
Oh, yeah, you know, interesting that you should ask that because I really tried to think about the function of the punctuation mark and give it a job or a personality that related to that function. So the twins are chatterers because quotation marks are used for showing speaking. So. And
then you use those kinds of punctuation marks with some of the other character development. Tell us a little bit about that as well.
Well, let's see. I've got Penny as the safety patrol because she stops things and she even kind of looks like a big stop sign, I think. Alfie, of course, is the magician, and Bud Asterisk, who is the star.
And as you were developing those characters, did you record those thoughts down in a journal? Or how did you go about that?
I'm not very good with journals. A lot of writers are. I'm a little piece of paper person, so I have little pieces of paper with thoughts all over the place. I have to collect them when I actually start to write.
Well, this is an important question that I like to ask every author. What advice do you have for the budding writers out there that have that story in them and they're just waiting to write it down? What advice can you give them, and how do you apply that to your next project?
Okay, there's a few things. The first thing is read. Read a lot, because if you read, you learn more. The most important thing, though, is write, 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 because the more you write, the better you get at it.
I've so enjoyed having you here today. Moira Rose Donohue, thank you so much.
It's been a treat. Thank you, Della.
Thank you. For the Fairfax Network, I'm Della Kidd. Keep reading, keep writing, keep dreaming.